Let's get going.
Sad look. Yeehaw.
So we are done with the future programming work group status, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's go to the 2024 cost effectiveness well, actually, let me ask you, what would you like to handle next?
We're going to do the EMV reports and then the alternative fuel evaluation reports.
You're in the driver's seat.
They're kind
sir.
of together because they're both kind of EMV related. So
Okay, take it away.
good morning, Chair Barvey and Commissioners. Dan Hurley on behalf of staff. Oh, one note on future planning work group, again, as was stated several times yesterday.
I'm sorry, what?
As stated several times yesterday for the goals, any kind of quickness in the decision would be appreciated.
Yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
We kept here.
Well, I guess it's 2 days ago now, but
Yeah.
And as I think I said, I'll assign the employees I don't have yet to it, so.
appreciate that.
Right.
All right, so we're going to start with the 2024 EMB reports. Those reports are filed in the case jacket, and we have Joe Loper of the Loper Energy Team, who is our independent evaluator, to provide a brief overview and answer any questions.
And, yes, I was trying to figure out what I should talk about. I don't want to read the report to you or read the numbers off. I think in terms of the primary cost test that the Commission is concerned with, the societal cost test, it's been repeatedly that we got a 1.6 benefit cost, meaning $1.6 of societal benefits are accruing for $1 of costs. So if it's okay, I want to focus on some challenges that we're having and some of the concerns that I was hearing from some of the stakeholders.
That would be
yesterday.
terrific.
Okay. And so over the last year at least, really a couple years, we've had many work groups, many meetings. They range from the future programming work group to establish goals, the UBCA to establish new cost effectiveness requirements and develop uniformity amongst all the different distributed energy resources, including efficiency. The midstream work group obviously has been a challenge. We had a financing work group, we had cost recovery work group, which was dealing with very controversial performance incentive mechanisms. And so all the stakeholders that are involved with the evaluation that I deal with in the evaluation advisory group are integrally involved with all of those work groups. And so everybody's kind of like pulled in a lot of different directions right now. It's further complicated over the last year by the energy affordability concerns, which really are counter to the priorities that everybody's been operating with over the last couple years anyway, related to climate and reductions of GHG emissions. And so we've got now legislation that reduced the goal stringency, required use of MDE emissions forecasts, and as always, we've got changing markets for energy efficiency measures, which we have to consider as well. So the goals are already were very challenging, even with the reductions to 1.75%. It's very challenging, largely due to there being less low-hanging fruit. Whoever thought it'd be so hard to change light bulbs, but it's proving really hard. There's no several years we've been asking for several years there have been requested to come up with new programs and ideas that could offset those reductions, and really they haven't come. And I've been in the energy efficiency world for 30-something years, and I kind of know I got a good lay of the land out there. And I think if the people who have been involved would have come forward with something, if there was some sort of a shiny little nugget that could be to replace lighting. So in terms of an action item on that, there's probably none, but the Commission is dealing with the same time frames and complications that we're dealing with here, and I think that's where I've kind of heard stress in the room around that. The independent evaluator role, just to be clear, and I think y'all are clear, but ultimately my role is to maintain the integrity of the savings claims, and while considering the larger policy environment, and that is really about informing the discussions and asking questions. I have a lot more questions, as Commissioner McLean probably knows from our work a few years ago, than I have answers. But the objective, one of the primary objectives, is just to keep a lot of these issues off the commission's desk. And because we deal with a lot of stuff that in other places where it might land on the commission's desk, and I'm pretty sure that y'all don't want to deal with all these issues. The reason I raise all this is because some of the concerns that have been raised by the stakeholders, in particular, I think the utilities really yesterday, go to the heart of this and my role as the independent evaluator, and how conciliatory I should be towards their concerns and needs. And I try to be very aware of it and try to be cognizant of it. And I also try to be humble, understand that I don't know everything, and that really the best I can do is get all the stakeholders in the room and make sure that their positions are heard, and get experts in the room also, so that we're fully informed. So, but I throw that out to you really. I get a lot of guidance from Dan too, but it's certainly, if the commission determines that I'm being too hard in terms of the evaluations and the protocols, then I would appreciate that guidance, and we can make adjustments. Meanwhile, I just continue to kind of take a fairly hard-nosed look at things, while at the same time being open to discussion. So the stakeholder concerns specifically that at least have caught my ear, is the changes in program documentation requirements. So there are a lot of as the lighting programs have gone away, there's more emphasis on I'll call kind of boutique programs and boutique projects. It's one-off type stuff or relatively small stuff, which is harder to evaluate. Or at least you don't really have the scale to evaluate. So you're going and looking individually at a project to say replace fans in a cement operation, and so we to be able to evaluate those with any level of rigor, we need information, we need documentation on those projects. That documentation is not convenient to collect. In fact, some customers will even decide that they don't want to participate in the program if they got to provide that level of documentation. But from my perspective, I can't just turn away and say I don't need the documentation because you can't get it. I could say I don't tell the programs what they should do. They can run the programs however they want. That's not my job to tell them how to run the programs. All I can do is say this is what I need to verify that the savings that you're claiming actually occurred. So in response to some of the concerns this last year over documentation, we've crafted a documentation protocol. There's not consensus on it. The utilities are pushing back, and their implementers are pushing back on it. We're basically, our position is you're at risk. If you can't provide that documentation, we're still going to work with you. We're still going to try to help you demonstrate your savings claims. But to the extent that you're not able to achieve our documentation requirements, you're just at risk of us not giving the savings. Which, as background, for a long time, when we first started, and I've been in Maryland since the beginning of EmPOWER, and at first we did not, our verified savings often didn't equal the evaluated savings. But we realized over the course of a couple of years that confuses the marketplace, and so we have made every effort and continue to get agreement with the evaluators and with the implementers on our savings, on our evaluations, and try to make the numbers line up. That way you don't have to look at different sets of numbers and wonder why they're different. And so that's our objective. So I heard concerns about timeliness yesterday. This is, again, it's been a challenging environment for the last year, but I totally get where the utilities need timely numbers to be able to even start setting up to prepare their program plans. And so we have, my team has been very much involved in that enterprise, and we continue to emphasize it. There was, I know, concerns expressed. It was brought up again yesterday, but expressed to the commission, I think, earlier in the year, about the verification reports not being completed in a timely manner. And I would just say to you, if you haven't already heard it, that we have developed a schedule, worked with all the different stakeholders. There are a lot of different people have to provide data at a certain time for us to be able to achieve those target calendar dates. But we've gotten a consensus within the evaluation advisory group to do that. The other concern I heard yesterday was related to the CNI lighting protocol. And this is one, this got hung up. We had a future programming work group where we're developing goals. Part of that goal structure development is based on the estimated useful lives of equipment and thus the types of programs and measures that are in the portfolios. We were at the same time doing a TRM update, technical reference manual update, for all the measures in the TRM, one of which, and probably one of the biggest, or the biggest maybe, is the CNI lighting. And so as we're going through that, starting in December, we're realizing we need to make some significant changes to the TRM due to changes in the market. In fact, we should make them, they should really be applicable now. The 2025 programs should be evaluated based on that TRM, but we're not doing that because we have a policy for a long time where we try to, as much as we can, provide to lock down our assumptions. An example is you don't want utilities to assume that there's 1.6 dishwasher cycles in a day, and then you go change your number based on some other information to 2.5, and then they got their savings, or they're not realizing, or they're in that case realizing more savings than was predicted. So that's why we try to lock them down. That was by doing the lockdown, it has reduced a lot of tension in the evaluation in our realm over the years, and so we'll continue to do that. But in this case, for purposes of the future programming work group, at least, it was not locked down, or it changed mid-course, and that's where you got a lot of the tension, I think, that at least that I've faced around the future programming work group goals. How am I on time, or what's?
You're fine.
The level, good level.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. So on the CNI lighting protocol, I just want to reiterate, I totally understand the utilities' concerns about this and the timing. At the same time, I think we did the right thing, and that the numbers needed to change. Turn to I'll have a comment on actually the future programming work group goal setting, and it's kind of it's a comment for possible consideration. The term affordability is being thrown around a lot everywhere, and I don't know what it means. And in fact, I think that's part of the challenge with the various stakeholders not being aligned on what goal should be established. Does affordability simply mean reducing the surcharge or minimizing the surcharge? I think in some views that is what it is. Or is it, per Commissioner Suchman's comments yesterday, what are we trying to achieve? And are we trying to reduce the cost of providing electricity, the capacity cost and the energy costs? And that I haven't heard what the answer to that question is, and it would really be helpful if we kind of knew. Right now, you have a major conflict going on between, as I alluded to earlier, the societal cost test and affordability. At least the societal cost test, a quarter of the benefits are coming from GHG emissions, and another quarter is coming from criteria emission benefits. If you did, as I forget his name, but the contractor representative yesterday, if you
Maloney.
yeah, thank you.
If you'd pull the microphone just a little closer.
Right. If I'm usually I usually talk too loud, so if if you put the details on the bill about what you're getting for the surcharge, then the question is whether ratepayers, some would care about those GHG benefits and the criteria emissions benefits, some wouldn't. And I think to the extent that the pressure has been on to reduce the program spend, that's a big part of what's hanging you up. Maryland, by the way, I came into this business because of concerns about climate, so I am not a climate denier in any respect. But I also recognize the realpolitik of the world, and at least over the last year and a half or something, you've got a lot of jurisdictions walking away from climate commitments, in which case Maryland's kind of standing alone with 1,000th of the population of the world, and the GHG benefits in our cost effectiveness test. There's about I think almost 8 billion,
Right.
almost
Less
8,000
than,
million
yeah.
people
Right.
in Maryland, and about 8 billion people is what I was basing that on.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so that's that's a challenge. You're on the one hand trying to have very aggressive, and this is a legislative challenge, but you're in a box just like the utilities are in a box, right? We're all in this box where we got to do these aggressive programs to address GHG emissions, while at the same time emphasizing affordability. And so it's giving some, I would say, pretty perverse incentives in terms of what people are doing. And I will come to, let me touch on a couple of those perverse incentives that concern me, and that I would, that you might want to consider at least being aware of and maybe monitoring. So one is with the societal cost test, which is your primary cost test. That test does not count transfers as costs. So when a program administrator cost is a cost, right? There are opportunity costs that are incurred. You've used labor, some sort of labor or capital that's no longer available to something else. However, when you give a rebate to somebody, you haven't incurred a cost in itself. Giving a rebate is just a transfer. One person's worse off, one person's better off, but it's not considered a cost. And so that feeds into the affordability challenge as well, right? So it also, my action item, I guess, for that would be to just monitor it and monitor the program administrator cost test alongside the societal cost test. And because the program administrator cost test will capture that. And the program administrator cost test is significantly lower in terms of its benefit cost result than the societal cost test. I'm not saying to rely on that one. I'm just saying that I would urge that it be at least considered. And especially given that there's now that the utilities are being pressed to have their rebates equal 70% of total program costs. It's almost like kind of encouraging greater rebates. So that would be so that's one thing I think should monitor. And by the way, I'm happy to help. We can help monitor and help provide reporting or whatever on these topics if you choose. And then also the goal is based on gross savings. That in some cases that, if not encourages, at least doesn't discourage utilities from including from trying to address or minimize free ridership in the programs. And so you basically going, and I know that it's controversial. In fact, I think even on the commission in the last hearing, I think I heard two different voices on whether free riders are important or not. But for me, it's like basically you're paying you're paying something for nothing. You're giving out money and you're not getting anything. It may be avoidable, right? I'm not saying that you can have zero free ridership at all. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that you should do things to discourage the utilities from just going out and giving money to free riders, because I think that's to the extent that the utilities are in the hot seat to meet gross savings goals, that there's well, let me just put it this way. I feel like I'm a pretty honest guy, but if I had that goal, that was my metric for performance, I was having to come face the commission, I would be, inclined to go get that money out there wherever I could claim the savings, regardless of whether the program was actually inducing the activity or not.
I'd like to start getting into allowing my colleagues to ask questions.
Yeah.
So,
That was actually exactly when I ended.
Okay,
Thank you.
terrific. Before I open it up to questions, let me just say that being an observer of what's been happening, for many, many years myself, it's a couple of things are clear. Number one, we all work for the legislature, and the legislature has made some policy changes since the Climate Solutions Now Act in 2022, I guess. The Renewable Energy Certainty Act was very much in keeping with the Climate Solutions Now, but the next gen, certain policy changes were made that we have to comply with. And then most recently in the Utility Relief Act, the legislature explicitly said what they intended with respect to goals. And we have to live within that framework as well. So that's all I'll say about that. Obviously, as a commission, we have to be guided in terms of the overall strategy by what the legislature said. The second thing, with respect to free ridership, it is impossible to get rid of free ridership. We just don't have. The only way to get rid of free ridership is to get rid of the programs that are intended to create incentives. So we don't have the ability to do a Vulcan mind meld and read the mind of the companies and the players to know what they would have done if the program had never existed. So we have to be cognizant of it. We have to try our best to avoid free ridership, but it's not something that can be eliminated. It simply cannot be. So those are the only things I really want to say. Thanks for your evaluation. Let me just open this up to questions, if anybody has them. Well, I'll start with Commissioner Suchman.
Can I say that I concur with both the things you said? I want to make sure that I didn't.
Yeah, no,
monitor it and
I didn't mean to imply that you were on the opposite side of that. I just wanted to make sure the record showed at least how I feel on the whole matter. I mean, I was one of the authors of the Climate Solutions Now Act, so I've seen some of my work get clawed back. I mean, there's just no other way to say it, but I'm not a legislator anymore. I'm a utility regulator, and my job is to follow the mandate of the law. So, go ahead, Commissioner Suchman.
Well, and to follow up on that, I agree that it's almost impossible to try to avoid free ridership, which sort of presents the challenge of EmPOWER, because it's built in a way that makes it impossible to avoid free ridership. So in that sense, it's not the most effective use of money. And then we have the regressive nature. I mean, it's very hard to justify a program that allows for ratepayers who can afford to do something to get paid to do it, in a way that it's where that opportunity is not available to the folks that really need it, that still end up paying for it. So trying to find a way to address those two issues, that's your challenge. But that is a challenge, and we recognize that's a huge problem. I guess the question about affordability: are you looking to us to help better focus the definitions around affordability?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, and I don't want to put work on your desk.
Oh yeah, please do. We're actually not busy enough, and so we're looking for more things to do.
But I think that's where, well, at least when I'm listening to the different stakeholders, ranging from Jim Gravatt to the utilities, I can make all their arguments. They all make sense to me, given that I don't know what the definition of affordability is. If I go define affordability, however each one of those people are defining affordability, then I can agree with them. And that's the challenge. I don't know how you answer the question if you don't have some sort of definition. And that was my my main point.
Okay.
And the conflict between the and my action item or suggested action item could be to, in addition looking at the societal cost test, also looking at the program administrator cost test. It's not the same. I think Ms. Zeichner yesterday said 6 cents a kilowatt hour delivered for for the programs, it's not exactly that. It actually looks over the longer term at the cost of supplying the electricity. I'm focused on electricity here, which includes fuels and variable costs, along with capital costs, investments in the future, which you were talking about yesterday. And so that's, to me, seems like something to at least be monitoring and understand. If that is right now, the program administrator cost test overall is around 1. If that starts to go down, then that, I think that would be a cause for at least awareness of the commission.
Right. It may be that the sort of affordability is kind of the goal, and the tests are about how we get to that. Sometimes if you get too caught up in trying to define something, it makes it not a useful exercise. Hope that makes some sense. Evaluation. And I know you were here yesterday when I was sort of pushing the utilities for inclusion of these programs in its electric planning process. Is there a way of evaluating the programs, not just in terms of how they're doing to meet these tests, but how effective they are in meeting the needs of the utilities and ratepayers? So how effective is demand response in avoiding having to build more wires? Is there a way of bringing that into your evaluation?
Well, I think we already do. We do evaluate DR programs, and we do evaluate the KW impacts of the efficiency programs, and ascribe a benefit to that. And so, at least we have that information. I'll tell you that for the most part, at least as of for the 2024 report, and I think we have some more recent numbers that I just didn't look at last night, for 2024, that most of the DR programs are not cost effective by themselves at a broad level. Now, if you go, I think a lot of the discussion over the last, by the way, there are exceptions. BGE in particular has a couple programs that are DR programs that are showing up as cost effective, and one at least highly cost effective. So this is not a rule. I didn't mean that to be a rule, but but the emphasis on local DR and figuring out where you have pockets of where load is, where it's constrained by distribution, then that's where the real economics, I think, come, and that's I think that's rightly being where the utilities are at least looking.
Okay, but do you have that kind of information now, or are you able to? No. Okay.
No. We've actually talked to the utilities about trying to get that, but I think they're doing it themselves, and it seems like it may not be a real role for us. But we're happy to participate. I got people who can help with that, but I think the utilities are kind of on the case, looking at local load opportunities.
Okay, because it may be that DRs are not demonstrating to be cost effective in terms of certain tests, but if you look at DRs as a way of addressing the need to build more, so as a non-wire solution, it may be cost effective there. So I'm sort of wondering if, or I guess I'm asking, are you broadening the evaluation to incorporate those kinds of outcomes?
Yeah, we have our cost effectiveness test for efficiency or DR or anything else always have included a capacity benefit. So the capacity benefit is the avoided the capacity that you no longer have to invest in as a result of the action taken by the program.
Okay.
So it's definitely a consideration, and the problem, I think, the challenge for a goal, for a DR goal, as well as for DR cost effectiveness, business. It's just some places don't need it, some places do, and if you focus your resources on the places that do need it, get a lot more bang for your buck.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McLean.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir. Good to see you again. On a couple of things you brought up, the documentation challenges you're having. Can you expand on that? I mean, what are you asking for that's so difficult to provide, or you're getting pushback to provide?
Yeah. So the challenge with evaluation generally, and including the gross savings evaluation as well as the net, is to figure out what's happening in the facility and what would have happened in the facility. Gross savings is what did happen. This is the quick definition. Net savings is what happened as a result of the program. So even figuring out what did happen, those gross savings that get counted towards goal reductions, goal savings, that's even challenging, because you got to figure out if we had a situation with a rock crusher, or I don't want to give specific examples, but if
A widget.
yeah, well, widgets are actually a little easier because we have a technical reference manual which tells us what the baseline is under different circumstances. But even that is challenging. But when you go into something where it's a totally novel industrial process and try to figure out what was the customer doing, what were they gonna do, what changes did they actually make? Because or should we calculate the savings as a change from what was actually in situ or in place, or what they were going to go purchase otherwise? That in the vernacular, that's a time of sale purchase versus an early replacement purchase, and those have totally different baselines that are used for calculating savings. And so those are the kind of things that we have to get at. For widgets, HVAC units and or residential HVAC or lighting, those kind of things, we can assume a lot of those baseline determinations away. For especially large projects, but really any project that's kind of novel or different, we got to understand what's going on. And I was actually, even for widgets, we got to know what's going on in the facility. That's why there's been a little bit of a battle going on. In fact, I heard it yesterday. There's still some consideration of doing instant rebates, and if we don't know who the customer is, and especially for fuel switching, we have no way to know what was going on in the house before the unit was sold there, and whether they did switch fuels, whether the unit was already broken down and they were going to have to replace it anyway, or whether it was an operable unit and now they're going in and replacing it because the program induced them to go switch fuels.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, so it's a lot more complicated than just you're not getting the right documentation. It's going to vary by project.
Yeah, and we're trying to be. I think that the documentation protocol is fairly clear about what we need from them. It's information about the customer. It's access to the customer. It's access to the customer facility. In some cases, it's even access to the customer before the project occurs. Because if you go in after the project occurs, you don't know what was there before. And so, yeah, there's a lot of dimensions to it. It is not simple. A protocol. That's why we haven't had a protocol for this specifically in the past. We've kind of done it, as these projects came along. Mm-hmm. We worked through them, but we've had quite a number of different, I'll call mini battles over how we should be evaluating some of these projects. And I think there was a general feeling that we need to develop more precise direction in terms of what they need to provide us.
All right, thank you, sir. There's one more thing I wanted to hit on. It seems like a common theme through, I think, all, or if not most, of the utilities filings. They had some concern about, I guess it was I'm looking at Delmarva's filing. It was on January 14th, 2026. You informed the utilities and DHCD that the emissions intensity factor was being updated, and you requested a revised factor be applied to the projects. And I don't think the utilities were, I guess, happy about that. And I'd just kind of like to get your side of the story, sir.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I wish we could do better. I wish we had done better. So I'll say that. I wish we had gotten it earlier. In our defense, there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different parts, and I try to try to read the room and understand where the priorities are and what the different stakeholders need from us, and prioritize that way, because I can't give it all at once. And this is one where I think I failed, and I actually didn't even know it was. I to be honest, didn't know it was an issue until yesterday.
Okay.
So.
So what necessitated the change in the timing of the change? Can you?
Yeah, there's a number of things that have gone with the. I think that's what I was trying. I talked briefly with Miss Yu yesterday to see what exactly was going on. I could think of a number of different possibilities. So we've had one emissions forecasts coming from MDE, which have changed over time. We have differences in what else? Although I'm sure I'm missing some, but there's a number of the calculation of GHG emissions intensity or multipliers associated with reductions in energy consumption is also not as simple as it sounds for electricity. Especially for gas, it's pretty straightforward, but for electricity, we have to understand the emissions intensity over the life of measures. That's the challenge, right? So you can't, if a measure's 20 years, we need to anticipate what is the intensity of the electric sector GHG over 20 years for that measure. And so you can make a lot of assumptions about that.
I mean, I assume when you're talking about, forgive me for jumping in here, but when you're talking about electric GHG intensity, I assume you're saying it for the whole PJM. We drink out of the same cup of coffee. I mean, we could be 100% clean energy here in Maryland, and all they have to do is build a couple of coal-fired power plants over the border, and that goes into the mix. I presume that's the way traditionally these calculations are made.
I think it's not quite that way because because politics intervenes, and the Maryland Department we're instructed to use the MDE. Well, it was a policy choice made by the Evaluation Advisory Group as of, I think, 2 years ago, that we're going to use MDE projected emissions intensities.
And what is that?
Oh, well, the MDE is projecting out what the mix of electric generation is going to be over, whatever the time period is.
But is it only in Maryland or throughout the whole?
MDE is based on Maryland. They have an import. I think it was like 20% or something, or maybe more than that. It's varied.
It's not 40%.
It was like, I think maybe it varied, but depending on which number.
Okay, so it does.
But it's
okay.
a significant portion are from assumptions about PJM electric intensity.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted
It's
your
okay.
question.
No, you're fine, sir. And the last thing, one of the things at least Delmarva, and I think pretty much all the utilities recommended, was they wanted the commission to consider establishing a procedural guidance to address a defined timeline for final verification and cost effectiveness deliverables from the independent evaluator to the utilities and DHCD,
Yeah.
such that the submissions such as submission no later than 8 months after the end of the calendar year. What's your stance on that, sir?
We immediately did that, and met within the EAG, developed a schedule and calendar, and with roles of all the different parties. And obviously, it's not, I'm not the only party to development of that, so we need everybody to get stuff in a timely manner. And but ultimately, that's on me, and we're going to do better.
Okay, so you're in favor of the general concept?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I understand the need for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Reader.
Okay, I'm going to allow 2 minutes to any party that wants to speak. And oh, look, there we are.
Sorry. Good morning.
Give us your name.
Chair and Commissioners, Chris Hutchinson, Hutchinson. I'm the Manager of Evaluation and Analytics at PGE. I just want to thank Joe for providing a lot of context for some of the issues that we've been seeing at the EAG. Too quickly on 2 points that Joe raised. First, the timing of the simplified reporting factor. That is something that's just being used for this cycle. We've addressed the timing with Joe and his team, and we've kind of, as a group, learned from that experience and are working on. Long story short, it will not be an issue moving into the next cycle because of how the utilities will be reporting their savings. So we've addressed that. And as far as the CNI documentation issue goes, there's really one major point of contention from my knowledge, and please feel free to correct me if I'm out of line here. But a lot of where the utilities are kind of pushing back against some of the requests from the independent evaluation team is situations where we feel like it's an undue burden on the customer for those highly customized pieces of equipment. Getting an alternate quote can cost the customer in some cases, and I'm not the expert, I'm not the CNI team, but we've heard numbers from $80,000, things like that, to get alternate quotes for these highly customized pieces of equipment. But by and large, we are aligned with the custom guidance. And one of the other issues is a lot of these site visits happen a year, sometimes more, after the fact. People have changed at those particular at those companies, at those facilities. It makes it very difficult. So BGE, and Joe, this might be news to you, sorry, not to catch you off guard. We're piloting a new closeout process for our large custom projects to ensure that the documentation is there. The statewide evaluator will be present at all of those, so they will ensure that they're able to do some of their net to gross interviews and things like that. Like I said, we are in the process of developing that. BGE is piloting it and are happy to share. If it's successful and results in less controversy for these CNI programs in the future, we're happy to roll this out to the other utilities if they would like to adopt it as well. But there have been some issues over the last year with, I think Joe did a really good way of outlining it, and it comes from a lack of clarity of how granular, how rigorous, and how specific we want to get with the EM&V process. Joe has expressed that he's being pretty hard-nosed with his evaluation, and that is his professional judgment. He's fully entitled to do that. But from the utility perspective, we're not sure what the full benefit is to customers by being as rigorous as we possibly can. I like using analogies. I think of something like the SNAP program. If we were to account for every single person and interview and document and verify every single person that participates in SNAP, the cost of all that verification would likely outweigh the fraud that is taking place. We kind of feel similarly with EmPOWER, and without clear guidance on how rigorous we need to be, parties are left to argue from their professional judgment and their positions, and it comes down to negotiation rather than agreeing upon the data. It's BG's perspective. At times, the independent evaluator has been quite aggressive in these negotiations, and we think that some of the savings have come out in a place where BGE feels that the data doesn't support. However, that's our position, and the independent evaluator is entitled to his position. And this is kind of the push and pull that I think Joe is talking about, where we don't have alignment on what affordability is. We don't have alignment on, do you want to know how much of the savings can the utilities prove, or what is the range they probably landed in? And without that clarity, it creates tension within the group. We're unclear about how much documentation is really required to satisfy what requirements are needed to gain the verification level that you all want to see from the programs. So getting that sort of clarity will reduce the conflict within the EAG. There's not always conflict. There's been a little bit more in the last year or so. As Joe likes to say, he likes to get along with everyone, and I think that's everyone's goal. But getting that clarity of the level of certainty that you want from it, and I know that's a very broad, hard to answer question. I think all parties in the AG are eager to work together and with you to understand, what's the level of certainty that's required? What's even the role of EmPOWER within Maryland's climate strategy, whether we are...
Okay,
Sorry.
not...
Sir, I know
I
that's more than
stopped
2 minutes.
counting
I
after.
apologize.
I stopped counting at 4 minutes. In any case, any questions? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else care to comment? All righty then.
Mac, may I just make one quick comment?
Please do.
Just to say that in general, it is a pleasure working with all these stakeholders.
In general.
In general. And,
Noteworthy exceptions.
but I will say it's actually, I would be uncomfortable if we weren't squabbling a little bit.
Okay.
That would, our role is as an independent evaluator. And I agree with Chris. I don't know how you're going to decide what that appropriate level of rigor is for, really in many cases individual projects. And so I make a judgment, they argue, I try to hear them, we get other people to come into it, and that's the process for deciding those things. And,
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Dan?
Thank you. So I would just add on that the EAG group is, I would say, 90% to 95% is very collaborative and gets along. It's those 5% issues that kind of maybe cause some headbutting to go on. So
Okay. No, I would expect that.
as
Nobody can be no one can get along as well as the five of us do. So there we go.
and very rarely have we had to file a report to have the commission make a decision that the EAG hasn't been able to come to consensus on.
Okay. What next?
So our next, speaking of large, unique projects, our next report out will be on the alternative fuels report that was filed in April. And Michael Zhang is going to provide the overview, and I guess other parties are probably going to line up on this one to provide some commentary as well.
Okay, terrific. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Michael Zhang on behalf of staff, Michael, last name Jiang. I'll just provide a brief kind of summary of the two questions that we kind of wanted to ask the Commission from the EAG's perspective, and then I will go into a staff position for a short explanation from our viewpoint. So essentially, there has been a project that PE has been looking at, and it raised some questions as to how we account for alternative fuels in the EmPOWER goal. So specifically, due to the shift of EmPOWER goals from a megawatt-hour metric to a lifecycle GHG goal, utilities have had the ability to achieve goals through opportunities that they previously did not, since they did not contribute to the EmPOWER goal specifically. So the Evaluation Advisory Group, the EAG, is seeking guidance from the Commission regarding two main questions. The first one is, can utilities continue to claim GHG emissions from projects that involve reductions in use of non-utility delivered fuels such as oil, propane, coal, and diesel fuel, regardless of whether or not those savings come from efficiency, electrification, or process improvements? And then two, if the utilities can claim savings from these sources, should those savings be limited in any way, similar to how front-of-the-meter programs can only make up a portion of the utility's total portfolio goal? So that's the summary of the request in front of the Commission, and then I will go into staff comments now. So staff believes that there should be two distinctions made for answering these questions. One situation is where the alternative fuel is being used to provide power or provide heat. The other situation from staff's viewpoint is a situation where the alternative fuel is being used for non-energy use purposes. So specifically for the project that brought up this topic to the EAG's attention, it's staff's understanding that the facility uses coal that needs to be dried up, and then it is used as an input for another process that is done in that facility. The coal is being burned so that it becomes dry, but it's not burned for to provide power or heat. What the project does is it replaces the need to burn the coal to dry it, and instead uses electricity to, from staff's understanding, like power some sort of device which spins the coal to dry it instead. So staff recognizes that there are GHG reduction benefits associated with this project, but kind of views that the elimination of this need to burn the coal as more of an ancillary benefit than, or like a bonus than something that is typically found within EmPOWER. So for staff's recommendations, for the first situation, staff recommends that the Commission does not limit utilities from claiming savings from alternative fuels for projects where the alternative fuel is being used to directly provide power or provide heating for the facility, for example. But for the second situation, if the Commission does believe that there should be a limit on savings from alternative fuels where the alternative fuel is being burned or used for non-energy use purposes, staff would recommend that the utility should be limited to achieve up to 10% of their entire EmPOWER portfolio savings through those sorts of savings. And thank you. We're available for any questions.
Questions?
very
Okay,
quickly.
no
Mr.
question. What?
No, just real quick. And
Yeah.
this type of allowance for I think you note in your comments, propane and fuel oil has been accepted previously.
Yes. So
This isn't a new issue.
yes. So typically those savings have been fairly small. I think it was ranging from about 3 to 6% of the total EmPOWER portfolio for each of the utilities. I think the reason why this project got so much attention is that it would have made a large, significant portion of a total cycle goal for one of the utilities.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, you had no questions, neither did I. So let's go to, you know what, let's take a quick 10-minute break and get back here at I guess, 11:35. Okay, here we go. Go ahead. I'm going to be a little more Teutonic about 2 minutes here, so a little more. I don't know. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. Edward Miller, Potomac Edison, Manager of Compliance and Development. I would like to make just a few clarifying comments, provide a little bit more context regarding the subject project that staff is discussing. The first thing I would like to highlight is that this is what we refer to as a process improvement. It's being handled under our custom program. This is a project that would have been eligible for incentives under our EmPOWER program for as long as we had the custom program, effectively since practically the beginning of EmPOWER. What I would like to highlight is, in this case, we have a customer who is replacing the use of coal and diesel as part of a drying process, and they are installing energy efficient variable frequency drives and fans to provide the drying of the product that the customer manufactures. I would like to also highlight that we do recommend that the commission not restrict the amount of GHG savings that we're allowed to claim from this project. I think first and foremost, I'd like to highlight that seems counter to helping the state meeting its aggressive climate goals. And further, I'd like to highlight that I do not recall in the history of the custom program in EmPOWER having any savings restricted from projects that are eligible projects under the program. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, let's go to People's Council. Oh, pardon me. I keep being reminded to turn my microphone on, so go ahead, Nicole. Just tell us your name so it's in the record.
Good morning again. Nicole Zeichner from the Maryland Office of People's Council. OPC has 4 concerns with beginning to count large quantities of savings or GHG reductions from large C&I electrification or efficiency projects that involve either fuel switching from or the elimination of unregulated fuels. We have 4 primary concerns, and the first is free ridership, and I understand the Commission has made some comments today about free ridership, but the issue here is that if we're talking about a large commercial or industrial facility, most likely there's a business reason why these changes are being made and not because a rebate is available. And I think, we're talking about industrial facilities that are high producing perhaps and have already decided to do this possibly, right? So I think free ridership is more of a concern here than maybe it normally is. So that is a concern, but there are 3 others. I understand how the Commission feels about the free ridership issue. The second is when we over-rely on C&I projects, we're diminishing what can be done for residential customers, unless the utilities are going to do more than required by statute. So this particular project, I am hesitant to quote what PE said that it would do towards their goals. I would like PE to say that, and they didn't want it in the report because they weren't 100% sure of the number, but it was enough that it concerned us. It was much more than 3 to 6%, and that is why, once we start to do this, it becomes a bit of a slippery slope. How much are we going to be doing from C&I, and how much are we going to be doing from residential? Our third concern is benefits would accrue to a small group of affected customers. That's a 2-tiered thing. First, it's possible these facilities haven't really been significantly paying into the EmPOWER surcharge if they're using coal, for example. Secondly, how are they, the benefits are not necessarily accruing to other customers outside of those that pay, or outside of the facility itself. We're not sure if there are larger grid benefits involved. Those are the types of things we'd want the work group to really think about. And program diversity. EmPOWER is valuable in part due to the diversity of programs. There's something for everyone. When you get a lot of benefits from one program, you have to reduce your other programs unless you're going to exceed your goal. So those are our concerns, and we think this should go to a work group. Thank you.
Well, I have to confess to the fact that every time I hear the word free ridership, I think of times I was standing on the floor of the House and having my more conservative people from a certain political party throw that in my face every single time. So, but I'll try to improve myself in that respect. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Morning, ma'am. How would you respond to Mr. Miller, who indicated, a program like this has never been disallowed before, and there's never been a limit on them either?
And my understanding, based on conversations in the work group, is that perhaps this would account for an unusually large amount of savings. And I believe that's also due to the passage of HB 1532. Because the utilities goals have been reduced, this changes things to some extent. But I don't want to quote, that amount, but it was significant.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Okay. All right. I think we're done with that issue area. What's next?
Next up is the mediation report
Of course.
between PEPCO and Washington Gas, and Commission Advisor Melody Santiago Mosier is here to provide the overview of that report.
Great.
Good morning, Chairman Barve and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Melanie Santiago Mosier. That is spelled MELANIE SANTIAGO-MOSIER. And I'm here today in my capacity of having been appointed by the Commission as a mediator to discuss a disagreement between Washington Gas and PEPCO. And again, the underlying dispute related to cross-fuel measures and resulting savings, specifically for the C&I custom programs offered by those companies. To start off with, as mediator, I really appreciate the professionalism and good faith of both Washington Gas and PEPCO as they approached this mediation, which is a little bit novel for our agency. I'm eternally grateful for the assistance of Mr. Jang, who served as my advisor during the mediation process as well. Unfortunately, despite robust discussion, the mediation did not yield a negotiated agreement. However, I believe that the effort was very valuable in that it was a way to unpack a variety of issues that were really underlying the disagreement. So again, the underlying issues relate to the provisions of measures for C&I customers that can yield both kilowatt-hour savings and therm savings. Since 2018, Washington Gas has operated under actually a formal agreement with PEPCO to share fuel-specific savings for residential customers under the Residential Coordinated Program. But since that time, the companies have also operated under an informal arrangement to share fuel-specific savings under the C&I Custom Program. Following the passage of House Bill 864 in 2024 that updated EmPOWER to focus on GHG reductions, PEPCO indicated in its plan that it intended to explore new opportunities to pursue GHG reductions in its C&I custom program. Following approval of the plan, PEPCO and Washington Gas did discuss possible ways to update the way that they share savings, but did not come to an agreement. Thereafter, in April 2025, PEPCO updated its C&I program. Its new terms and conditions introduced its own therm-based savings programs for C&I customers. Washington Gas raised concerns about PEPCO's new program offerings in the October 2025 hearing and in subsequent filings. PEPCO counters and disagrees with the concerns that Washington Gas outlined. And again, while the mediation effort did not yield an agreement, we did unpack quite a good list of underlying issues that we outlined in the mediation report. The top issue is really the threshold issue is what is the Commission's interpretation of House Bill 864? Does the bill and the realignment of EmPOWER goals to focus on GHG reductions mean that PEPCO and other electric utilities can claim savings based on therms? And would that kind of interpretation mean that Washington Gas and other gas utilities can claim savings based on kilowatt hours? Another issue is what's an appropriate method to allocate savings between electric and gas utilities for cross-fuel savings, incentives, and projects? Does an EmPOWER program model that allows a single fuel utility to offer cross-fuel savings incentives impair cost causation principles? When is it appropriate for a utility to propose and implement significant changes to their EmPOWER program offerings mid-cycle without seeking authorization for specific program changes? Are savings claimed from non-equipment measures in the EmPOWER program? As savings are claimed, what's an appropriate way to ensure that a customer doesn't pursue duplicative incentives from multiple providers? If cross-fuel claiming incentives are allowed by a single utility, what's an appropriate way to account for potential impacts to another utility's ability to meet its GHG reduction goals? If cross-fuel claiming incentives are allowed, should utilities that offer similar programs be required to offer parity in terms of incentives? Is it more or less beneficial to customers for a single utility to offer cross-fuel claiming incentives? And finally, how should therm savings that have already been claimed in 2025 and are currently being claimed this year be treated? It's unclear whether the Commission has addressed that issue. So with that brief overview of the mediation and the dispute and the underlying issues, I'm happy to stop and just say that, the parties did indicate that, once some of these underlying issues are resolved, they're happy to go back to the negotiating table and continue talking about ways that they might be able to share savings. Thank you.
Questions? Go ahead.
Just a quick question. So, resolution of these issues is only going to be applicable for this year. After this year, we're done because Washington Gas can't participate in EmPOWER. So we're just really sort of the questions about meeting goals and I guess who's paying? Is payment an issue?
Yes, Commissioner. I think there's a question about, is the way that savings have been allocated in this last cycle since PEPCO's last update, is that a fair allocation? Should that be adjusted in some way? Is a method of payment on the table to account for that? As to the question of going forward, it's my understanding that House Bill 1532 did remove gas companies from the EmPOWER Maryland program, but I would prefer that Washington Gas speak to that themselves.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have Taylor Beckham.
Yes. I just wanted to really touch on actually the point that Commissioner Suchman was bringing up and related to the comments that were made yesterday regarding, yes, moving forward, it is PEPCO's position that HB 1532 renders this question moot. Related to the savings within this current cycle, I do want to raise to the Commission's attention, again, we're talking about the custom program, and there's two programs that particularly are at issue here, and those were projects that were dual fuel projects. And what I think is really key here is the actual project itself was essentially, you're installing piping, and that was a project that originated with PEPCO. The other project also originated with PEPCO, and that's all that's been at issue. Projects that are originating in PEPCO, where PEPCO is actually doing the work. And related to the informal agreement that Ms. Santiago Mosier brought up, in the past, when we were working under an energy savings model, certainly we would still do all that work. PEPCO would claim the electric savings, and we'd say, hey, Washington Gas, there may be some gas savings here. FYI, have the customer also apply to you, and you can see about claiming those therm savings there. Here, where PEPCO has done the work that resulted in more efficient therms or more efficient gas aspect to it, as well as done the electric component of the work, PEPCO's claiming all of those savings. Certainly because now we're looking at this is all GHG savings. In the past, those savings would have been left on the table. Or there was a level of, and I know we've been talking about free ridership. It's become a fun word today. That was a way that with what we're talking about today, we're almost eliminating that aspect of it, because in the past, WGL wouldn't have to expend the money to do the project. They would just get those savings, those therm savings. So here, again, because of the switch to HB8, or because of the HB 864 GHG reduction, goal, we're now looking at getting all of the greenhouse gas savings for a project that PEPCO did the work for. So I just want to make that clear, that the two projects that I think we reported on in 2025 and whatever's in the pipeline, we're not talking about going out and doing work on gas specific projects. Just want to make sure I hit all my points here. I do just want to make it clear too, with something that we said yesterday, or that was talked about yesterday, related to the current 2025 and 2026 items. The commission, the WGL and PEPCO in our filings after the hearing, WGL asked the commission to do something in the immediate. We responded related to something being done in the immediate for the current cycle. And the commission declined to say, hey, PEPCO, stop doing what you're doing. So I feel like that issue has already been considered by the commission, and it was really a forward-looking question of what to do related to the 2027 to 2029 program cycle. But of course, with HB 1532, that question is no longer on the table. So this is also something that, from the PEPCO perspective, the commission has already declined to revisit.
Okay. Any questions for, yes, go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Beckham.
Good morning.
So for residential customers, how do you divide the savings?
I don't know the exact split, but what I understand is there is a formal, like once WGL joined EmPOWER, and I think 2015, there was a formal MOU in place between the residential savings where, and I don't know if it's a level of a calculation or just saying, because we do share the same implementer, saying, hey, where there's electric savings, we'll take this part. For the gas savings, you take that part. I don't know if it's a calculation or a specific split, but it is a formalized memorandum of understanding that sets out that procedure.
Okay, but when the calculations were changed to GHG savings, you didn't try to capture the savings that were being given to WGL through this agreement.
Related to the residential
Yes.
programs? Well, because there was already a formal understanding in place, we didn't disturb that understanding. And that wasn't something that we put forth in our initial, or our program design that we filed when we were directed to, I guess, in 2024. Given that, of course, there's an informal understanding in the commercial project, and we made clear that we were going to be looking at new technologies in 2024, we didn't, and there was no memorandum of understanding to, update or revisit. We did not do that.
Okay, but before we switch to GHG savings, are you saying that the values that were given to WGL were values you couldn't take advantage of anyway? So you were just sort of saying to them, you want to take credit for this, it's yours because we can't use it.
Yeah, and I mean, we weren't saying it's yours. We were saying, hey, we've gotten the electric savings. We saw during doing that project that there could be gas savings here. We're letting you know. It still was on the customer to still apply for those gas savings separately with WGL to get that. But there was it wasn't like we were saying, hey, you guys take the
Right,
gas
but you
savings.
couldn't take advantage of it anyway.
Well, we didn't need to.
Well,
It's
electric
electric savings.
Right, you could only take
I think-
advantage of the.
I think you guys are agreeing.
Right. So yes, like we're in violent agreement. So
Parents.
right, but what you're saying is because it switched over to GHG, you saw an opportunity to be able to take advantage of any gas savings that resulted from whatever it is that you were doing because it was GHG at that point.
We saw once GHG reduction became the goal, there were we were then incentivizing greenhouse gas reduction, which resulted in, of course, therms either getting more efficient therms or to the level of electric GHG reductions related to that, related to the project that were electric based. We also claim that. So yes, we saw that with the need for greenhouse gas reductions to be the goal, we are incentivizing greenhouse gas reductions, and it just is in the form of therms and electric.
Okay. So maybe when WGL speaks to this issue, you can explain to me why you believe you're entitled to those GHG reductions, even if it's not your project. So, okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
One of the first things Washington Gas noted or questioned, I guess, in their approval was that you made this change without the express commission approval or stakeholder review. And I know there's a passage that Ms. Santiago Mosier's report discusses, and I think PEPCO relied on that. It's on page 4, ma'am, in the indented portions.
Of the mediation, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's, am I correct, that's what you're relying on in terms of the commission approval?
That's what we related. That's what we included in our program plan that the commission then approved.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean, but this seems, I don't know if vague is the right word, but maybe extremely broad, and there's, not a lot of specifics in there. So I'm just wondering how this can be interpreted, your exploration of a certain project, unexplained, that's not specified, can be deemed approval to go out and do specific things. I guess I'm just struggling with how this equates to approval.
Yeah, I mean it is broad, but what we're saying is the custom program will explore new opportunities and technologies for GHG reduction. So the opportunities there, I think it's a inherent understanding of what greenhouse gas reductions are, and the fact that if we're going to be doing a project where certainly the electric portion of it is kind of clear cut in terms of we're going to be getting greenhouse gas reductions there, the therm reduction aspect of it is also an inherent understanding of a new opportunity there for us to get that greenhouse gas reduction. I do also want to put a point on there is this implication that once we updated our terms and conditions to reflect this construct, if you will, that wasn't approved. What we do in the normal course is once we get the commission approval of our plan, we do update our terms and conditions consistent with that commission approval. So that was not something that was out of the norm either for us to update our terms and conditions. But to really answer your initial question, we think that it was broad, and we think that the inherent new opportunities aspect inherently in that means that we're going to be claiming what's now greenhouse gas reductions, which are in the form of therms.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, thank you very much. We'll go to WGL.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. First of all, just want to come up here and just avail ourselves for any questions from the Commission. I do have a brief comment regarding Ms. Beckham's characterization.
Give us your name so that we can put it in the record.
Jumping the gun here. Josh McClelland, Director of Energy Efficiency at Washington Gas. That's MCCLELLAND. And a brief comment on Ms. Beckham's characterization of the custom program. The way that it's being described by Ms. Beckham is that PHI believes that the benefits and the savings that come, whether from its electric or gas, should be given to the utility that does the work. Ms. Beckham described that PHI, the customer came to PHI's custom program. They did the install, and so therefore they should be entitled to all the savings and benefits that come from that project, whether it's gas or electric. But if you use that same logic, then that means, and that is only one very small situation that is part of a broader set of circumstances that happen between WGL and PHI's custom programs. And so the inverse is also true, where we have customers and projects coming in through WGL's custom program. So does that mean that we, as the gas utility, we did all the work, our contractors did all the of installation of the measures, so do we get to claim the kWh and the gas therm savings? We don't think that's appropriate because there is precedent established in EmPOWER Marin through the residential coordinated program where it's based on the fuel type and it's based on the customers that are bearing the costs. And the residential coordinated program is that precedent through EmPOWER Maryland. When HB 864 was put into law, there was no directive by the commission or there was no impetus from the utilities to change the framework of the residential coordinated program to be just GHG, and we would have these arguments and these kind of debates on who gets what. That stayed the same because there is a general understanding and a precedent established that it's based on the fuel type. The gas utility gets the gas therms, the electric utilities get the kWh. That hasn't changed on the residential side. Ms. Beckham is correct that, the PHI does a lot of the work, but so does WGL. So that's the question that's before the commission. Do we get to collect all the savings, whether it's from gas or electric or not?
Okay, perfect timing. Questions? Go ahead. You? No?
So, if we were to decide, because it's a GHG construct now, that whoever does the work gets all the credits, you would be comfortable with that?
No, we would not. We would want to maintain the structure that is established in the residential coordinated program, where the benefits and the savings are derived on fuel type, not on the utility that did the work or who got the project first. We should set up a structure where it doesn't matter if it came to WGL first or PEPCO first. It's split and distributed between both those program application processes. PHI gets the electric, Washington Gas gets the therms.
And once 2027 comes around and you're no longer able to participate in EmPOWER, do you have a problem with PEPCO at that point claiming the GHG credits from the project?
We won't have a program to compete with, so no, starting in 2027 is not the problem, but that's still many months away, and we still have statutory goals to hit this year. And so if this issue is not addressed in a timely manner now, PHI is going to continue to essentially pilfer projects from WGL's pipeline, and it will really put us in a very difficult position to hit our statutory GHG life cycle targets.
Okay, and how big a problem is this? Is this 10% of your GHG opportunities, 20%, half of it, or less?
That's a tough one. It is a moving target. It does vary year over year. Right now, I think the main issue is the C&I custom program brings in those very large projects, and there could be one or two that happen over the course of a year that could bring in enough energy savings and GHG reductions that could hit our entire 3-year cycle goal. So it could range. I think last year, our C&I custom program accounted for roughly 20% of our energy savings performance. I can't give you a very accurate number right now for this year, but it is significant enough where if that percentage of performance is not there, it could really impact our ability to hit the target by next year.
Right, but sort of real world, we're only worrying about this year because you're not going to be participating next year. We're almost at June. So where are you from January 1 to now in terms of meeting your goals? And how much is this going to impact your ability, if we were to side with PEPCO, how much is this going to impact your ability to meet your goals to the end of the year?
If you're looking for a number, I don't have that right now.
How about just a general sense?
It's going to be significant. I would say it's going to be anywhere in the range of 15 to 20% reduction in our ability to achieve our target by the end of the year.
Wait, it's going to be 50 to 20%?
15 to 20%.
Oh, 15 to 20% of your, so 15 to 20% from now until the end of the year is going to be GHG that's going to PEPCO and not to you.
I think that's an accurate way to look at it. If
Okay.
you just assume that we're going to hit 100% by the end of the year, if this issue isn't addressed and we are not able to claim those therm savings, it will have been 85% or 80% by the end of the year instead of that 100%.
Okay, and you haven't sort of gone out on your own and tried to find these projects, or encountered customers who are saying, well, Pepco already signed us up. Are you?
No, we absolutely have. Yeah, we are still trying to encourage our customers and service providers to still go through our program. And that does make it difficult because within Pepco's terms and conditions, they put sole claiming provisions. They won't allow a customer to participate in any other programs once they are entered Pepco's pipeline. So once a customer has made the decision to move with Pepco, they can't come seek, because they're providing both therms and KWH, they can no longer come to our program. But we are actively trying to recruit and bring more projects into our pipeline as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
Could I respond?
I really want to avoid turning this into a debate. Make
Okay.
it very brief, please.
Just to that last point, what we're doing as far as the exclusivity provisions, it's actively trying to prevent against double dipping, because that again would be a customer being able to receive or they'd be getting both therm and KWH savings from us, as well as another round of therm savings from WGL.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none? Okay. Nobody else wants to comment, right? Okay. There we go. Thank you very much, Melanie. What's next? Who's next?
So next up, we'll talk about the staff midstream investigation into the timelines, which I
Okay.
got a lot of discussion yesterday. But so briefly, to just quick overview of our investigation. This was required by Commission Order number 92176. Our investigation to the claims of delayed incentive payments to the contractors. What we did, we issued data requests and had meetings with both the utilities and the contractors separately, really to try to understand the full timeline of the midstream, the timeline of midstream projects, and we developed that. We gave that example on page 6 and 7 of the report. The key takeaways in that report noted that the distributors take typically 32 days with their processing. Program implementators take 15 days, and then the utilities take 7 days. Kind of the final analysis of our investigation was basically the program as designed is running as it's designed, and we don't have any changes to recommend at this time. I think given the time where we are in the process of the current cycle, any major changes to this program would not take effect until October, September, October, and it's really we'd be past the cooling season. So I think this is an issue that can be discussed with the future planning work group as part of our program design elements within that work group.
Okay. Chuck, anything? All right. No questions from, oh, go ahead. Damn.
I'm sorry, I'm holding everyone from lunch, but good, I think, afternoon now. Good
Yep.
afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Eric Rupko, ERIC RIOPKO, here on behalf of Baltimore Gas and Electric. I do want to just kind of reinforce a little bit here that there's been a lot of talk yesterday about the midstream program, but the bottom line is that in our presentation in the morning, that the program is working. We are meeting the goals. We were provided extensive data to Dan and Commission staff regarding the payment timeline. Even though the report says that there's no further action necessary, we've continued to work to improve this program. This is like all programs that we have. We continue to work to refine them and improve them. I think the key thing here is that we've asked the contractors for support on where they're finding issues, and we've gotten nothing from them when it comes to this. We saw Sean get up here yesterday and speak on behalf of the contractor. We've asked him, if there's an issue with contractors not getting paid, let us know so that we can fix it. And the Commission acknowledged this in their earlier report in February, where they said to the line that there's little of anything in the record that substantiates the claim from the contractor. We want to move forward with this program. We want this program to work. We believe it's working. It's working. Contractors are joining this program. We saw a 40% increase in the number of contractors joining this program last year. We're on pace to see more contractors join this program this year because it's working. I think that the facts are there, okay? The facts are there in the reports that we provided. The facts are there in the filings that we have for the semi-annual. This program is working. We've got a lot of people that are doing hard work to make this program work. And there's facts there showing that it's working. It's moving heat pumps. It's working with contractors, working with distributors. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, none. I think that, well, whatever.
Good afternoon. Jennifer Raley on behalf of SMECO, last name's R-A-L-E-Y. Just to follow up on a few things that Mr. Repko said. One of the other comments that was made yesterday about instant rebates. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. We heard from Mr. Loper earlier about the collection of paperwork and the information that's needed to do the evaluation. So there is concerns with instant rebates that we wouldn't be collecting that information until after the fact. So the rebate would already be paid, they'd get an instant rebate, and then collecting that information could be difficult, and gathering all the information that's needed. The other thing is, in the work group, we had been tasked with talking to our distributors. The HVAC contractors were tasked with talking with theirs, and the utilities were asked to talk with their distributors and bring that information back to the work group, which we did provide information on Friday to the work group. But out of that survey that we did with our distributors, the majority of the distributors said they are not for an instant rebate, and quite a few of them said they would actually drop out of the program if we forced an instant rebate model on them. Because they do have concerns with the paperwork that they need to collect, the complexity, and also the operational burden that it would put on them, and the financial risk also. Our concerns too is with the MMV challenge that would pose with collecting the information that is needed. One of the other things is just, like Mr. Repko said, we have been working to expedite the rebates. We are currently processing them within under 30 days, but we are looking to make some changes with some ACH payments that are going to be going to the distributors that could reduce that timeline a little bit more. So we're working as much as we can to reduce the payment timeline, but we feel like at this point it is within a reasonable time frame, as staff had stated within their report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the bench? Okay, thank you very much.
Just have just one quick final comment on that.
Sure.
And, with our other investigation with the fraud implications on EmPOWER, you've heard a lot of discussion about paperwork and reviews and evaluation. It's really, in my opinion, at this time is not the right time to be talking about, easing off on our rigor of our analysis of these programs. I'll just leave it at that. Thank
Okay, understood. Okay, let's move on.
So our next report is the 15-minute interval data report. That's between PEPCO, BG, and Montgomery County. Montgomery County wishes to have access to 15-minute interval data for their project, for their programs, and it's been determined it's very expensive to do that. So the last round of meetings really centered on defining the maximum demand over a one-year period. There was just the joint utilities contacted a couple associations to request that information, and the answer reflected that there is really no specific, they do not specify how maximum demand is calculated, and therefore the utility billing data that reflects the maximum demand over a one-year period is a sufficient means to meet the conditions of the requirement. Within that, the joint utilities in Montgomery County both offered some recommendations moving forward, and they're at the table here to talk about the recommendations.
Well, before we get to them, any questions for staff? No, sir. Okay, we'll start with Montgomery County, then we'll go to PEPCO, and I'll give you guys each 3 minutes. So please tell us your name.
Yes, my name is Brian Howard, Bryan Howard, and I'm with Montgomery County. Thank you for the opportunity to just share a little bit more of our recommendations from the report. I will try to be brief, Chairman, as you have requested. Again, I think we recognize that trying to make these devices utilized 15-minute interval data is just not cost effective in the current construct, and I think we recognize and acknowledge that issue. I think just that being said, we do continue to see there is value in lowering the barriers to cost of electrification, especially for emergency replacements. We do see that there's opportunities to do that. And I think there are some things that we can continue to test and innovate in terms of that process. We do recommend continuing to try to find some pilot opportunities in that process. That can again minimize the cost differentials so that we've acknowledged exist, but still be able to find some innovations. So one is a pilot, whether that's in terms of new or replaced meters. So that's certainly something that we are going to continue to see uptick in terms of either new construction activities or other replacement opportunities that exist within meters. If we're actually just doing that in the first place, that creates the opportunity to pilot and innovate in that process. The other pilot we would suggest is, for Montgomery County, we have neighborhoods that we're working with in our local HECAP program, which is an income qualified program. Looking at either a neighborhood scale or something of that kind to see what we can do with electrifying houses to verify the loads, with the worksheet methods and kind of train that process. The other thing that we're also exploring, and we have, we're unable to schedule the discussion before this work group, but to talk with MEA about some of the pilot work that they're doing for some of their special fund for low or income qualified heat pumps, and seeing if there's some opportunities to look in that process, whether that be in Montgomery County or other parts of the state that might be able to service that process. So those are at least some of the things we're thinking about. But again, I think just to reiterate, we think that there's continued value to explore this and hope some of the things we're suggesting are maybe some ways to meet in the middle on this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from Pepco, and then I'll entertain questions for both. Go ahead, Taylor.
Taylor Beckham on behalf of Potomac Electric Power Company, Delmarva Power and Light Company, and to some extent the Joint Maryland Exelon Utilities. And I also didn't want us sitting here to indicate that we were going to be up here for a while. So I'll be brief, very, very brief. I think what is really clear here that Mr. Hurley and the gentleman from Montgomery County just indicated is that 60-minute interval data has proven or shown that there is no difference to having 60-minute interval data compared to 15-minute interval data. There is currently 60-minute interval data available on all the AMI meters in the service territory. There's no need to expend additional ratepayer funds to reconfigure certain meters to provide 15-minute interval data, especially when we are in the environment we're in related to affordability. So given that all parties, including the code, have determined that 15-minute interval data is not any better, we don't think that it's a good exercise to continue to try and see about moving towards 15-minute interval data. The 60-minute interval data that is already being provided is sufficient. And I'll just call the Commission's attention back to our filing that we made, I think it was February 18th, when we were initially exploring the costs and what this would look like. Recall, doing this project would only impact a very limited amount of individuals anyway. There was really, and I think it's BGE's numbers, only 10 to 30% of service upgrade, 30% of service upgrades would be avoidable if you move to this 15-minute interval data. So the benefits, again, are just not there related to the cost of what is being requested.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Suchman.
There's probably a question in what I'm about to say, but it's more of a statement, and this goes back to the questions about what are we doing in EmPOWER and how is that benefiting the system. 15-minute data may end up being critical, but it's not. But the question is to what effect, and we've been exploring questions about data availability and data sharing in the VPP process, Drive. We've been looking at DERMS, and that may be the more appropriate place to have this conversation. There's no question that getting granular in the data that is available in an AMI is going to be really important for us and for the utilities making the right decisions about what to build, where to build. But I worry that if we start to do pilots here, we're going to be spending money, and then it comes to back to the question of to what effect. So no question, I agree with so much of what you're saying now. It's just that I don't want to necessarily use EmPOWER money for that. But I think I hope you're involved in the stuff we're doing on VPPs and drive and storage, and aggregators and the conversations we're having about aggregators getting the kind of data that they need to make those kinds of decisions. And that may be the better place to have the conversations about 15-minute data. So.
Yeah, thank you for the comment, and I recognize and appreciate that there are a lot of integral pieces that are moving in this place. We are trying to actively keep track of all the
you and me
the
both.
many things that you all are keeping
Right.
busy on, and we're trying to do that. I will talk with some of our technical experts who are I think, working on this more diligently than I am from a residential team, and see where they think the puzzle pieces may fit well, but we may provide a more thorough written response.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I encourage you to get involved. I mean, know that we are monitoring that,
Yeah.
and trying to find the best ways to use to use ratepayer funds. I think this may not be the right place to do it, but trust me that we are like all over this, and so.
Thank you for
All right.
for the comment.
So thank you.
Taylor, do you have anything you want to say?
I do agree that this isn't a conversation for EmPOWER as well. I think that was one of the other points we made in our February 18th filing.
Okay. Okay, I think anyone else want to comment on this topic? If not, thank you very much. And final item, take it away.
Final item is the 70% customer incentive report. So in order number 92176, Commission directed the EmPOWER utilities to examine how EmPOWER Maryland program expenditures are allocated between customer incentives and non-incentive costs. The utilities filed their responses on April 15th, 2026. MEA did file comments on May 20th, 2026. I believe MEA's comments indicated that they thought they were responsive but not maybe insufficient. So I think staff's view is, as we share MEA's opinion, and probably a logical next step would be to put this into the future programming work group now that we're maybe beyond the goals, and we can talk about this as a item for program cost allocation. Is definitely ripe for the future program work group to discuss.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Anyone up? Here we go.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Chloe Bean on behalf of BGE. That's CHLOE, B as in boy, EAN. So we talked a little bit about our April 15th filing yesterday in our outbound. I'm not going to go over that again. But I did want to make a request for clarification in this discussion. As mentioned yesterday, BGE has a spending ratio that's well beyond that 70-30 advised by MEA. And the 70-30 is a good target, but in the end, it's kind of an arbitrary number. So in order for the utilities to be successful in this, we need to know a bit more about why that ratio is significant. So is the intent that we want to increase financial assistance to customers through direct incentives, or is the intent that we want to reduce administrative costs? Both of those are beneficial to that ratio, but they have very different impacts on program design and are achieved through different mechanisms. So the way that our programs are currently evaluated, a program would ideally pay an incentive that is just large enough to influence a customer's decision and no more in order to reduce free ridership. Again, I know that's a hot topic today, but that's kind of where we've been for a long time. Increasing customer incentives beyond that minimum threshold needed to influence that more efficient decision is a major departure from the way programs have been run for a long time. So if that's what the Commission intends, we would like to have some more official direction on that. The utilities run a few programs like behavioral that have very little to no incentive costs at all. One way that utilities could increase that spending ratio is just getting rid of these programs. But those programs are some of the most cost-effective and equitable programs that we run. So I don't think that's really the intent. But this is just one example of why looking at those ratios alone isn't really the best way to judge a portfolio's success. So we did include some pathways for increasing customer incentive allocations in our filing on April 15th, but wanted to highlight some of those ways that the Commission could help us achieve that. So one is reestablish reasonable evaluation rigor. The issues we talked about earlier have caused evaluation costs to increase by 44% in 2025 alone. And then, again, clarifying the intent of that ask. So we would like to recommend that the Commission evaluate whether we have the right spending ratio based on the type of programs we are submitting in our portfolio, as opposed to requiring just a blanket 70-30 across all programs where that doesn't really fit the purpose of those programs. So thank you so much.
Any questions for Ms. Bean? Go ahead.
Right. So that is actually very interesting, and I guess I'm sort of wondering, how finely do you divide up all of the different programs? So if you put behavioral I mean, do you do behavioral where there may be an incentive related to that, and a behavior where there's none? So you sort of divide it based on whether there's an incentive and where there's no incentive, and then so do you have a recommendation about how finely you divide that? Because I understand your point, and so the 70-30 may not have a lot of value if you lump them all together.
Right. So for behavioral, and I will admit I'm not an expert on our behavioral programs, but I believe none of our behavioral programs have any incentives, and that's what makes them so cost effective. Please someone correct me if I'm wrong. But that was something that we said, if you want us to really increase this incentive or that ratio, we could just lump some programs together, one that has a really good ratio and one that doesn't. You lump them together and then you get a good ratio. But that, again, doesn't feel like the intent of what this ask is, and doesn't really serve any purpose other than trying to give you a better ratio. So the way that we divide our programs now are based more on what does the program do, who's this program serving, and kind of more on the program itself. But again, we could do some of that rearranging if we wanted to. When we did our analysis for the April 15th filing, we did say we're going to pull out behavioral, we're going to pull out some other things that this just flatly doesn't apply to get that ratio. So there is that option, but again, if we had more clarity on what we're actually trying to achieve with this, I think it would be clearer about making those changes to programs to actually do what we want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lizelle Rory, on behalf of SMECO, LEZAELRORIE. We just wanted to provide some brief comments, especially recognizing that I stand between adjournment of these sessions. So we also did file comments regarding the 70% incentive ratio. I think one thing we wanted to point out is that in the benchmarking exercise, we not only looked at the ratio, but the cost of neighboring states in delivering their programs. And we did find that some states that may have better ratios also had much higher costs. So sort of to Ms. Bean's point, if the goal is just to sort of hit a ratio, we don't support just increasing incentives to get there, and just wanted to make the Commission aware that, there are states that might reach this ratio but do it at a much higher cost. We recognize that SMECO is not at the 70% ratio. We have done things last year with sunsetting programs that we believe will help us get there. A couple other things for consideration is that sort of the timing of incentive payments, especially with large projects, matters in terms of these ratios. So for example, some projects might be multi-year that require a lot of work, and sort of the non-incentive piece of the cost of the project until the incentive is paid out. So timing certainly matters. And just a final point, we did review MEA's comments that were filed on Friday, and there's a suggestion that, the utility should do more on this benchmarking analysis. We just want to highlight that this is really complex analysis, sort of becoming experts on varying states and different utilities within those states. There's a lot of complexity and differences on programs. You know, what are the offerings, EE versus E in electrification? Is it megawatt? Is it GHG savings? Are they low-income programs included? Naturally, low-income programs will have a higher incentive spend. So, you know, we just want to highlight that, you know, any additional analysis would be a burden for the cooperative, and we just don't have internal resources. You know, there are consulting companies and other third parties that do this as their line of work. So we would have to either, you know, hire internally or get additional resources to do more analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for us? Okay. I don't have any questions either. Thank you very much. Are we done here?
We're done.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you to everybody for participating in all the work groups and in this proceeding, and we will get back. So with that, have a nice day.